What happens when country music's golden girl walks into the lion's den and finds herself in the most hostile interview of her career? Today we're breaking down the explosive confrontation that left Carrie Underwood visibly shaken, the View panel deeply divided, and millions of fans choosing sides. This is the story of how one seemingly routine morning show appearance turned into a career-defining moment that nobody saw coming. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know in the comments how you feel about celebrity interviews that completely go off the rails. The day began like any other inside the View's New York studio. Carrie Underwood was scheduled for what should have been a simple promotional spot talking about her latest album and upcoming tour. Producers had booked her to bring that mainstream star power the show relies on during tight ratings battles. Whoopi Goldberg opened with her usual energy, briefly mentioning their guest. Joy Behar, always sharp-tongued, seemed especially keyed up. Sarah N. and Alyssa Farah Griffin settled into their usual spots while Sunani host sifted through her notes with an expression that hinted she had something in mind. The panel's chatter before Carr's entrance was light, centered on holiday plans and celebrity news, but seasoned viewers could sense an edge beneath the banter, especially in the way Joy kept glancing at her cards. When the commercial break ended, Whoopi's introduction was warm. Our next guest is a country music superstar with multiple Grammys and millions of fans worldwide. Please welcome Carrie Underwood. The audience erupted in applause as Carrie walked out with her trademark smile, polished yet approachable. She waved confidently, settling into the guest chair. "Thank you so much for having me," she said, her Oklahoma warmth instantly filling the room. The early questions were easy: album inspiration, writing process, and balancing family life. Carrie answered smoothly, sharing stories about life on the road and her kids' reactions to her fame. The audience laughed. The panel nodded, and everything was running exactly as planned until Joy Behar leaned forward. Her tone stayed conversational, but her eyes had that glint regular View watchers know all too well. "Carrie, your music has always resonated with a pretty specific demographic. Country fans, especially in certain parts of the country. How do you feel about the responsibility that comes with that kind of influence?" The studio seemed to quiet. Whoopi cast Joy a warning look. The other host shifted uneasily. Carrie kept her smile, but tension crept into her posture while she began carefully. "I've always believed music should bring people together. I try to write songs that speak to universal experiences: love, heartbreak, family, faith." Joy nodded but pressed harder. "Don't you think it's more complicated than that? A lot of your fans are in red states, rural areas, places where certain political views dominate." It was a moment that hung heavy in the air. Carrie's smile faltered slightly. "I don't really think about politics when I write," she said, measured but firm. "My job is to give people something that speaks to their hearts, no matter what they believe." It was the kind of diplomatic answer that usually ends these exchanges. But Joy wasn't finished. She leaned back, eyes sharp, voice edged with challenge. "See, that's interesting, 'cause staying neutral, staying silent, that's actually a choice too, isn't it? Especially when you're making millions from fans who might be voting against their own interests." And just like that, the interview turned into something nobody could have predicted. Carr's professional smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. "I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at, Joy." Behar leaned forward, clearly savoring the confrontation. "What I'm saying is this. Your music, your brand, your whole image is built on wholesome family values, church-going, God-fearing, traditional American values. But when real issues come up, things that affect your fans' lives like healthcare, jobs, and rights, you go strangely silent." The rest of the panel shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi tried to cut in. "Joy, maybe we should," but Joy wasn't stopping. She was on a roll. "No, Whoopi, I think this matters. Carrie has built her entire career on connecting with work Americans, people who trust her, who look up to her. And when those same people are being missiled about elections, about vaccines, about climate change, she stays in her lane and counts her money." Carr's composure was tested, but her voice stayed steady. "With respect, Joy, I think you're making unfair assumptions about me and my fans. I've never claimed to be a political figure. I'm an entertainer." "An entertainer?" Joy shot back, mocking. "Right? Just an entertainer who plays two crowds where Confederate flags wave in the parking lot. Just an entertainer whose concerts look like Trump rallies with better music." The audience gasped. Sarah looked horrified and Sunny stared at Joy in disbelief. Even for the View, this was pushing limits. Carr's tone was calm, but there was steel behind it. "That's completely unfair. I have fans from every background, in every political viewpoint. I've performed for troops overseas, for disaster relief, for charities across the spectrum. To suggest I endorse or encourage extremism is not only wrong, it's hurtful." Joy pressed harder. "Is it wrong, though? Because when your silence comforts people who want to overturn elections, deny women health care, or pretend climate change isn't real, how is that not a form of endorsement?" Carrie snapped back, her Oklahoma accent cutting through. "My silence isn't an endorsement. My silence is respect. Respect for my fans' ability to think for themselves. They don't need a country singer telling them how to vote." Joy gave a sharp laugh. "Respect for the same intelligent people who think vaccines have microchips and elections are rigged." Whoopi tried again. "Joy, I think we need too." But Carrie cut her off. Her voice was tight with anger. "No, Whoopi, let her finish. I want to hear exactly what Joy thinks about the millions of people who support my music." Joy didn't hesitate. "What I think, Carrie, is that you've made a business decision to stay quiet, because you know the truth about your fan base. If you admitted climate change is real, if you said vaccines save lives, if you said the election wasn't stolen, you'd lose money. So, you keep quiet and let them cling to their conspiracies. The studio was dead silent except for the cameras. Carrie locked eyes with Joy, her voice low and furious when she finally spoke. You want to know what I really think, Joy? I think you're sitting here in New York making broad insulting assumptions about people you've never met. You dismiss millions of Americans as ignorant because they don't share your politics. You act like anyone who goes to church or values tradition is some kind of extremist. Joy tried to jump in, but Carrie pressed forward. You talk about my responsibility to use my platform, but what about yours? You're the one dividing people, attacking not just me but everyone who enjoys my music. You're painting them as backward or dangerous simply because of where they live or what they believe. The audience was riveted. This wasn't the polished media-trained Carrie Underwood they were used to. This was a woman fighting back. Joy regrouped. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm asking a real question about the role celebrities play in our democracy. People are dying because of misinformation. Our democracy is under attack. Don't you think people with influence have a responsibility to speak up? Carrie didn't miss a beat. And who decides what counts as misinformation? You, the media politicians. I've seen plenty of things labeled misinformation one day, only to become accepted truth the next. Carrie's professional smile faltered for just an instant. I'm sorry, she said evenly. I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at, Joy. Behar leaned in, savoring the tension. What I'm getting at is this. Your music, your image, your whole brand is built on wholesome family values, church-going, God-fearing traditional American values. But when real issues come up, issues that affect your fans' lives, their health care, their jobs, their rights, you go quiet, very quiet. The other panelist shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi tried to intervene. Joy, maybe we should, but Joy wasn't letting go. No, Whoopi. This is important. Carrie has built her career on connecting with working-class Americans, people who trust her, who look up to her. And when those same people are being fed lies about elections, about vaccines, about climate change, she just stays in her lane and counts her money. Carr's composure was being tested, but she sat straighter. Voice cool but firm. Joy, with respect, you're making assumptions about me and my fans that just aren't fair. I've never claimed to be a political figure. I'm an entertainer. An entertainer, Joy repeated, her tone sharp with sarcasm. Right. Just an entertainer who plays shows where Confederate flags wave in the parking lot. Just an entertainer whose concerts look like Trump rallies with better soundtracks. The audience gasped. Sarah N. looked stricken. Sunani Hust shot Joy a warning glance. Even on The View, famous for its fiery clashes, this was rare air. Carr's voice stayed calm, but now there was steel behind it. That's completely unfair. I have fans from all walks of life, every political background. I've performed for troops overseas, for disaster relief efforts, for charity events that cross the political spectrum. To suggest that I endorse or encourage extremism is not only wrong, it's hurtful. Joy didn't back down. Is it though? Because when you stay silent while people who support you push lies about stolen elections or deny women health care or dismiss climate change, giving comfort to that, how is silence not a form of endorsement? Carr's accent sharpened as her temper rose. My silence is an endorsement, she shot back. No, my silence is respect. Respect for my fans as intelligent people who don't need a country singer to tell them how to vote. Joy let out a cutting laugh. Intelligent people, huh? The same intelligent people who think vaccines have microchips. The same people who say the election was stolen. Joy. Whoopi. Cut in, voice firm. I think we need to know, Carrie interrupted, eyes locked on her critic. Let her finish. I want to hear exactly what Joy thinks of the millions of people who support my music. Joy seized the opening. What I think, Carrie, is that you've made a calculated business decision. You know that if you came out and said, climate change is real, vaccines save lives and the election wasn't stolen, you'd lose money, so you stay quiet and you let people believe whatever conspiracy makes them feel better. The studio was silent except for the hum of cameras. Carrie held Joy's gaze, then spoke, each word clipped with fury. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of having blood on my hands because I won't be your political puppet? You don't know me, Joy. You don't know my heart, my values, or the conversations I have with my family, my friends, and yes, my fans. Joy opened her mouth, but Carrie raised a hand, stopping her cold. You want to talk about responsibility? Fine. Let's talk about the responsibility of a television host who uses her platform to demonize half the country. The responsibility of someone who judges millions of people she's never met based on their zip code or what music they enjoy. You're the one dividing people. Joy, you're the one fueling hostility. The audience leaned forward, riveted. This was no longer the carefully media-trained Carrie Underwood. This was a woman pushed too far. Joy regrouped, her voice sharpening again. I'm not demonizing anyone. I'm asking legitimate questions about the role of celebrity in a democracy. When misinformation is killing people, when democracy itself is under attack, don't you think people with influence have a duty to speak out? And who decides what's misinformation? Carrie shot back, her voice rising. You, the media politicians, because I've seen enough to know that what gets labeled misinformation one day becomes accepted the next. She leaned forward now, matching Joy's fire. And I've seen enough to know that regular people, the ones you think are solely manipulated, often have better instincts. Who caught on their step and voiced that differently? Influence, great responsibility carried, turning the foreface face off them. These Seriously, Sonny, but my responsibility is to my art, to my family, and to treating my fans with respect, not to become a political pundit just because I sing for a living. Joy leaned forward again, pressing her advantage. But Carrie, surely you see how silence sends a message. When you won't speak out against obvious wrongs, people interpret that silence however they want. Exactly, Carrie snapped, just like you're doing right now. You've decided that because I won't parrot your politics, I must secretly endorse everything you despise. That's not fair and it's not true. The tension was suffocating. The other panelists looked like they wanted to vanish. The audience sat frozen, aware they were watching one of the View's most explosive interviews ever. Joy squared her shoulders for the kill shot. Fine, let's get specific. Let's talk about what your silence really costs. She paused, letting the moment stretch, her voice dropping low and serious. Your silence costs lives, Carrie. When you have a platform that reaches millions and you stay quiet while misinformation spreads like wildfire, people die from preventable diseases, from political violence. Your precious neutrality has a body count. The words landed like a punch to the gut. Sarah audibly gasped. Even Whoopi looked shaken. But Carrie didn't flinch. She sat tall, her voice quiet but razor sharp. How dare you accuse me of having blood on my hands because I refuse to be your political puppet? You don't know me, you don't know my fans, and you sure as hell don't get to tell me what my silence means. The room had shifted. Carrie was no longer defending herself, she was on the attack. You talk about misinformation, Joy. But what about the misinformation you're spreading right now? The lie that everyone who doesn't share your politics is dangerous. The lie that celebrity opinions matter more than individual conscience. The lie that staying silent is the same as being complicit. Joy's face flushed red. I never said people were stupid, Carrie. I said they were being misled. By who? Carrie shot back instantly. By their pastors, their neighbors, their own experiences, or just anyone who doesn't get their information from the same sources you do. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? It's not about responsibility. It's about control. Sonny tried again? I don't think anyone here is trying to control anyone, Carrie. Carrie turned, eyes blazing but steady. Aren't they, Sonny? Because what I'm hearing is that unless I use my platform to promote specific political viewpoints, I'm somehow responsible for every bad thing that happens. That sounds an awful lot like control to me. Joy steadied herself, regaining composure. What you call control, she said, voice deliberate, I call civic responsibility. When you have influence, you have an obligation to use it for good. Carrie leaned in, her voice clear, cutting, unflinching. And who decides what's good, Joy? You, the media, politicians in Washington, Carrie said, her voice rising now, her composure unshaken. Because I've got news for you, Joy. The people who listen to my music, they're not mindless sheep waiting for celebrities to tell them how to think. They're teachers and nurses, they're farmers and small business owners, they're military families, single mothers and grandparents just trying to make sense of a world that changes every single day. The studio audience was transfixed. This wasn't just a spat over politics anymore. It had become a clash of entire worldviews, and neither woman was backing down. Joy leaned forward, eyes flashing. Those same teachers and nurses and farmers, she fired back, are getting their medical advice from Facebook memes and their political information from conspiracy websites. Don't you think someone with your influence should try to steer them toward reliable sources? Carrie's laugh was sharp, almost bitter. Reliable sources? You mean the ones that agree with you? Because heaven forbid someone might look at the same information and come to a different conclusion. Heaven forbid someone have different priorities, different values, or different life experiences that shape how they see the world. Joy shot back without hesitation. Some conclusions are objectively wrong, Carrie. The earth is round, vaccines save lives, climate change is real. These aren't matters of opinion, and I've never said otherwise. Carrie replied, her tone firm but steady. But let's be honest, what really upsets you isn't that I'm spreading misinformation. It's that I'm not spreading your information. There's a difference. Whoopi finally cut in, her voice carrying the authority of a referee stepping between fighters. Ladies, I think we're getting a little heated here, but Carrie wasn't finished. She turned back to Joy, her eyes blazing. No, Whoopi, I need to finish this. Joy accused me of having blood on my hands, and that deserves a response. The audience leaned forward as Carr's words sliced through the air. You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility of a television host who thinks the best way to reach people is to insult them, to mock their beliefs, to dismiss their concerns as ignorance or bigotry. Tell me, Joy, how many minds have you actually changed with that approach? How many people have you brought over to your side by calling them stupid? For once, Joy Behar was speechless. Her mouth opened, then closed, but no words came. Carrie pressed her advantage. Because here's what I know about the people who listen to my music. They've been talked down to by politicians, by media, by celebrities for years. They've been told their values are outdated, their beliefs are dangerous, their concerns don't matter, and then they turn on the television and see someone like you proving them right about how little respect elites really have for them. The studio was frozen. Even the camera operators seemed afraid to move. So, congratulations, Joy. Carrie continued, her voice quieter now but heavy with conviction. You've just spent the last 10 minutes confirming every suspicion people already had about media bias and coastal contempt. If your goal was to change hearts and minds, you failed spectacularly. If your goal was to divide people even further, well, mission accomplished. Joy finally found her voice, but the confidence that had fueled her attacks was gone. I wasn't trying to insult anyone, Carrie. I was trying to have an honest conversation about the role of public figures in our democracy. Carrie shook her head slowly, almost sadly. No, Joy, you were trying to bully me into being your political spokesperson. And when I wouldn't play along, you attacked not just me, but everyone who supports my music. That's not an honest conversation. That's the exact behavior that makes people trust the media less, not more. The weight of her words settled over the set like a storm cloud. Everyone knew they had just witnessed a moment that would be replayed and dissected for weeks. The silence stretched. Joy Behar, who had built her career on always getting the last word, sat stunned, her face caught between shock and fury. The other panelists looked like they were watching a car crash in slow motion, horrified but unable to look away. Finally, she tried to inject humor, tried to smooth it over. "Well," she said with a half smile, "I think it's safe to say we've had an honest conversation here, but the damage was done." Carrie Underwood sat perfectly still, her hands folded neatly in her lap, but her eyes blazed with the intensity of someone who had just gone to war in one dot. Sarah, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage, leaned forward to pivot the conversation, but everyone in the room knew it. Nothing could undo what had just happened. Sarah tried to pivot. "Carrie, maybe we could talk about your upcoming tour dates. Get back to why you're here today." Carrie turned to her with a smile, gracious, but tinged with sadness. "You know what, Sarah? I think we've covered everything that needs to be covered today. But before I go, I'd like to say something directly to your viewers." She looked straight into the camera. Her voice carried the warmth that had made her a star. But this time there was an edge of steel beneath it. "To everyone watching, whether you're a fan of my music or not, I want you to know that I believe in you. I believe in your ability to think for yourselves, to make good choices for your families, to care about your communities. You don't need celebrities, politicians, or TV hosts to tell you what to believe or how to vote. You're smart enough to figure that out on your own." Joy shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Carrie pressed on. "And to my fans specifically, I respect you too much to pretend I have all the answers. My job is to make music that speaks to your heart, not to lecture you about politics. I trust you to make the decisions that are right for your own lives. That's not indifference, that's respect." Alyssa Farah Griffin finally spoke. "Carrie, I think what you said about respecting your audience is really important. Too often in politics and media we talk down to people instead of with them." Joy shot Alyssa a sharp look. But Alyssa continued, "There's a difference between using your platform responsibly and using it to lecture. Maybe all of us should think about which one we're doing." Joy's jaw tightened. She had started this interview confident she could paint Carrie Underwood as a coward hiding behind neutrality. Instead, she had been dismantled by someone she clearly underestimated. And now, even her colleague was siding with Carrie. Sunny host tried to soften the moment. "I think we can all agree these are complicated issues. People of good faith can disagree on the best approaches, but Carrie wasn't letting go." "Can we though, Sunny? Because what I heard today was that if I don't use my platform to promote a specific political agenda, I'm complicit in violence and death. That's not a disagreement. That's character assassination." Joy finally spoke again, her voice stripped of its earlier fire. "I think you're being a little dramatic, Carrie." Carrie didn't hesitate. "Am I? Because you literally accused me of having blood on my hands on national television in front of millions of people. If that's not dramatic, I don't know what is." The audience stirred, some leaned forward, clearly on Carr's side, others shifted uncomfortably, but no one was checked out. This was morning television at its most riveting. Sensing the show was on the brink of chaos, Whoopi Goldberg jumped in. "Well, this has certainly been an enlightening conversation. Carrie, thank you for being here and for sharing your perspective." But Carrie raised a hand. "Whoopi, may I say one last thing?" "Of course." Carrie looked around the table, then back at the camera. "I came here to talk about my music, my tour, things that bring people joy. Instead, I was attacked for not being political enough, for not using my influence the way someone else thinks I should. But that's the problem. This right here. When you can't even talk about music without it turning into a political inquisition, when choosing to focus on your art instead of politics makes you a target, something is broken. And that's why people are tuning out of media, politics." She let that hang in the air. "This isn't about left or right, liberal or conservative. It's about respect. Respecting that in a free country, people get to make their own choices, what to believe, who to vote for, and yes, what music to listen to without being shamed or accused of complicity in violence." The studio was silent, even the equipment hum seemed louder. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something unforgettable. Carrie stood, shook hands with the panel, pausing only briefly before extending hers to Joy, who reluctantly accepted. "Thank you for having me," she said, perfectly composed. "I hope this conversation was as enlightening for you as it was for me." As she walked off the set, the audience erupted, not with the polite clapping reserved for routine goodbyes, but with a divided, charged response. Some people rose to their feet, others crossed their arms, but everyone was engaged. Joyce sat staring at her notes, shaken. The other panelists exchanged glances that silently acknowledged the truth. This interview would be replayed, analyzed, and remembered. What had started as a simple promo for a country singer tour had turned into on media respect and influence. Ironically, it wasn't the panelists or the politicians who delivered it. It was the supposedly apolitical artist. Carrie Underwood had walked into hostile territory and emerged not just unscathed but victorious. She had proven that sometimes the most powerful political statement is refusing to be political at all.